everyone, welcome back to another episode on Chris and Uncensored Japan. I'm at Engaku-ji Temple in Kamakura today. It was built in 1282 to commemorate the lives lost in the Mongol invasions of Japan. So stay tuned as I look into this event and a bit of the history of the temple itself. By the mid-1260s, Kublai Khan had secured control over all of China as well as the Korean peninsula. He then set his sights on the subjugation of Japan. Japan was at the time ruled by the Shiken regents of the Hojo clan through their capital at Kamakura. Between 1266 and 1273, there were about 6 missions sent to Japan, comprising of Mongols and Koreans, demanding that Japan become a vassal of the Mongol Empire. But for all of the visits, the Japanese ignored the envoys. The Hojo region at the time was Hojo Tokimune, and it was he who would be the one to face down the Mongols. In reality, the Mongols probably just wanted to have friendly relations with Japan, but the Japanese didn't like the connotations of being vassals and thus chose to ignore the Mongols, gradually infuriating Kublai Khan more and more. Finally, Kublai Khan ran out of patience and ordered the Koreans to construct a massive fleet capable of transporting around 15,000 troops. The Korean contingent had around 6,000 to 8,000 troops and about 8,000 sailors. In late 1274, the Mongol invasion force departed. Tsunoshima and Iki Islands were quickly overrun. It seemed there was nothing to stop the Mongol juggernaut. However, Hojo Tokimune had mobilized many of the Kyushu samurai, and they helped to hold the Mongols as they landed at Hakata Bay. The Japanese samurai fought in a very individualistic manner. They found the Mongol tactics confusing, especially the Mongol use of an early form of hand grenade. The explosions from that disoriented the horses of the samurai and caused many of the animals to panic. Fighting continued for a couple of days in a very fierce manner. But after a period of time, the invading forces were becoming exhausted, even though they'd managed to push the Japanese back some distance. And as a result, they decided to pull back their men onto the ships. During the succeeding night, which would have been in November, a contrary wind blew the Mongol force away from the invasion point. When the Japanese woke up the next morning, the Mongol invaders had gone. Of the approximately 30,000 strong Mongol invasion force, over 13,000 did not make it back to Mongol territory. The government in Kamakura knew that the Mongols would return, and to that end, they commenced construction of 2-meter-high walls in several places around Hakata Bay, as they knew that the Mongols would be certain to return to the very same spot, as it was the most favorable landing point in the area. Over the next several years, Kublai Khan sent a number of emissaries to Japan to keep demanding Japanese submission to the Mongol Empire. All emissaries were ignored, and when they refused to leave without a reply, they were beheaded time and again. In 1280, by this time thoroughly frustrated with Japan's stubbornness, Kublai Khan started forming a second invasion force, this time drawn from across all of Mongol territory in China and Korea. In particular, he had the southern region of China fully under his control by this time. The invasion force ended up being around 100,000 troops. In May and June 1281, the Mongols launched a two-pronged attack against Japan. As before, Tsushima and Iki Islands were quickly overrun, and the Mongols attempted landfall at Hakata Bay once more. However, the reinforced wall, which had been built in the intervening years, did its job, effectively preventing the Mongols from landing their forces. That night, likely July 2nd, the Japanese got into small boats and began raids on the Mongol ships. This was the kind of close-quarter fighting for which the samurai were uniquely suited as compared to the Mongols, and they took many Mongol heads in these raids. The aforementioned raids continued for several weeks. There were attacks and counterattacks between the Japanese and the Mongols regarding the smaller islands near Hakata the Mongols had occupied, as well as attempts by the Japanese to reclaim Tsushima and Iki from the Mongol invasions. So in this manner, August approached. On August 15th, a great typhoon arrived. It was common for the summer season in Japan, and it scattered the Mongol fleet, destroying many ships. Those of the Mongol force who made it ashore were slaughtered to a man by the Japanese. Those who could show that they were from southern China, which was considered by Japan to have been coerced into the invasion, were usually spared but frequently turned into slaves. These are anchors which have been linked to the Mongol invasions, and their discoveries suggest that the Mongol ships cut their anchors in order to get to sea as quickly as possible and try and escape the typhoon. For the Japanese, the two storms of 1274 and 1281, which had blown away the Mongol fleet, were considered to be divine winds or kamikaze. The Mongol invasions gave a distinct purpose to the Japanese national consciousness thereafter, whereas the Mongol Empire, on the other hand, had been shown the true extent of its limits, and in a way, its invasions of Japan had clipped its wings a little bit as a consequence. The Mongol invasions were a major victory for the government in Kamakura. However, as they were against a foreign invader, there was very little that Hojo Tokimune and his government could do to reward the samurai who had defended Japan in terms of land grants and so on. And this would prove one of the factors that will lead to the undoing of the Kamakura shogunate or regency in 1333. The failure of the Mongol invasions was also studied by the successors of the Mongol Yuan Empire in China, the Ming Empire, and they decided that trying to invade Japan and subjugate it in the future was worthless and futile due to the costly defeats that the Mongols had suffered by trying to do so. Here's the gate in question. Absolutely spectacular sculpture work. The 3 triangles are the symbol of the Hojo clan. So a few people have been making wishes by leaving 1 and 5 yen coins on the edges of the Kannon statues. What a beautiful, exquisite gravel garden. The one at Engaku-ji Temple in Kyoto is my favorite, but I have to say this one is also pretty good. I'm about to have a seat, relax, and enjoy some delicious matcha green tea. There's truly nothing more satisfying or relaxing than enjoying matcha in a temple. Thank you for watching today's video on Engaku-ji Temple and the backstory of the Mongol invasions. My name is Christopher Glenn and you've been watching Chris and Uncensored Japan. See you on the next video.